Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering a man who turned just $800 into $350 million in 2 weeks. No insider tip, no Wall Street connections, just a mysterious certainty about every rise and fall of the stock market. In March 2003, the world met that man. His name was Andrew Carlson. The FBI thought they had caught the most brilliant fraud in history. But when they pressed him for answers, his confession shook them to the core. He said he wasn't a criminal at all. He was a time traveler, visiting us from the year 2256. And then, as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. No records of his past, no trace of his future, just a trail of unanswered questions. What if I told you this story wasn't just a bizarre tabloid headline, but the beginning of a much deeper truth about time itself? A truth hidden in science, in history, and in the very fabric of reality. Because time travel may not be just fiction. It may already be happening. Our journey begins in March 2003, in the heart of New York City, where the world of high finance lives and breathes on Wall Street. Amidst the chaos of trading floors, shifting markets, and fortunes made and lost in minutes, a man named Andrew Carlson quietly emerged. He was 44 years old, unremarkable in appearance, but his actions would send shockwaves through financial circles, and eventually, the FBI itself. It started small, almost invisible. With a modest investment of just $800, Carlson began trading stocks. But what happened next defied every law of probability. Trade after trade, day after day, his investments didn't just succeed, they soared. By the end of 2 weeks, that meager $800 had transformed into an unfathomable $350 million. No one had ever seen anything like it. Even the best Wall Street insiders, armed with secret information, couldn't pull off a winning streak so flawless. Naturally, the alarms went off. The Securities and Exchange Commission flagged him immediately. To the FBI, it was an open and shut case of insider trading, using illegal knowledge of the market to amass untold wealth. But the investigation quickly unraveled into something stranger. When Carlson was finally arrested, reporters swarmed the story. Headlines screamed of a man with unbelievable luck, a modern-day alchemist turning pennies into gold. Yet, when FBI agents pressed him for answers, he didn't deny it. He didn't plead guilty. Instead, he leaned into the mystery. With a calmness that unsettled his interrogators, he claimed the impossible. He was not an insider, but a time traveler from the year 2256. According to him, he possessed knowledge of the market not because of illegal tips, but because he had lived through it, centuries from now. He said he knew exactly when stocks would rise and when they would fall, because to him, it was already history. The FBI, of course, dismissed this as an elaborate hoax. They were convinced he was weaving lies to cover up something bigger. But then, the deeper they dug, the stranger it became. Before December 2002, there were no official records of Andrew Carlson, no birth certificate, no tax filings, no employment history. It was as though he had simply appeared out of thin air. And then came the final twist. On April 3, 2003, Carlson was scheduled to appear in court for a bail hearing. But he never arrived. In fact, he never appeared anywhere ever again. No witnesses saw him leave. No trail was found. He had simply vanished, like a shadow erased from existence. Was Andrew Carlson a fraud who outsmarted the system? Or was he something far stranger? A visitor from the future who briefly revealed himself only to slip back into the currents of time? This wasn't just a scandal. It was the spark of a much bigger question. Is time travel actually possible? The disappearance of Andrew Carlson left behind a trail of whispers. Some dismissed it as a hoax, a bizarre tabloid fabrication. But for others, it opened an old wound, a fascination humanity has carried for centuries, the dream and the fear of time travel. The idea wasn't born in 2003. It had been haunting us long before. In 1895, writer H.G. Wells published The Time Machine, a story that didn't just entertain readers, but reshaped their imagination. For the first time, people began to picture time not as a fixed, unchangeable flow, but as a dimension, something that could be traveled, manipulated, even conquered. Wells gave us the phrase time machine, and with it, a gateway into both wonder and obsession. From that moment on, storytellers and scientists alike began asking, what if? Films, novels, and research papers flooded the 20th century with visions of moving through time. Some imagined one-way travel into the future, a haunting journey where the traveler leaves behind everyone they love, only to return to a world where decades, or even centuries, have passed. Others envisioned instantaneous jumps, leaping from one moment to another in the blink of an eye, and some painted darker, more complex pictures, where time twisted around the traveler, or where slow, deliberate methods like in the cult classic Primer showed just how tangled and dangerous a time machine could become. But science fiction, for all its creativity, was still just that, fiction. Or was it? Because while storytellers spun their tales, one man rewrote the very laws of the universe, Albert Einstein. His theory of special relativity shattered the certainty of Newton's timeless universe. Isaac Newton had believed time was an absolute, steady, universal, untouchable. But Einstein saw something different. To him, time was not rigid. It was elastic, like a river. It could speed up, it could slow down, depending on two forces, speed and gravity. Einstein called this phenomenon time dilation. And it wasn't just a mathematical trick, it was real, measurable, and testable. The first proof came in the 1970s, when physicists conducted the Hafele-Keating experiment. They took atomic clocks, some of the most precise instruments ever created, and placed them on airplanes circling the Earth. When the clocks returned and were compared to those left on the ground, they were no longer in sync. The moving clocks had lost time, not by much, just a few nanoseconds, but enough to prove Einstein right. Speed could bend time, and if speed could do it, so could gravity. Massive objects like planets and stars warped the fabric of space-time, creating dips and curves that drag time along with them. The closer you get to a massive object, the slower time flows. On Earth, we experience only a faint version of this effect, but near something truly immense, a neutron star or worse, a black hole, time itself nearly grinds to a halt. This isn't science fiction. In 2019, the world saw the first actual image of a black hole captured by the Event Horizon Telescope. It confirmed what Einstein had predicted a century earlier. Black holes don't just swallow matter. They bend time itself. To see how real this is, look at the story of astronaut Gennady Padalka. After spending 879 days in orbit, traveling at 28,000 km/h, he returned to Earth not quite the same as the rest of us. Relative to people on the ground, he had aged 0.02 seconds less. It's tiny, but it's measurable. He had traveled ever so slightly into the future. And it doesn't stop there. Our very GPS satellites orbiting above us must constantly be corrected for time dilation. If not, your phone's navigation would be wildly inaccurate. Time travel, at least into the future, is not just theory. It's a scientific reality we live with every single day. But the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. If moving faster and closer to massive objects can push us forward in time, could there be a way back? That's where Einstein's theories open a darker, more speculative door. Wormholes. Imagine space-time not as an endless flat fabric, but as something that can fold, twist, and connect. A wormhole would be a tunnel, a bridge between two different points in space, and possibly two different points in time. Physicists like Kip Thorne, who later inspired the film Interstellar, suggest that wormholes might exist on a quantum scale, smaller than atoms, flickering in and out of existence. If we could stabilize one with negative energy, it might open wide enough for travel. But here lies the danger. Travel into the past raises paradoxes, logical dead ends that twist reason into knots. What happens if you prevent your own birth? What if you alter an event that was necessary for your journey in the first place? The infamous grandfather paradox has haunted philosophers and scientists for decades, and yet others believe in the multiverse theory, that each change creates a new branch of reality, a fresh universe born from every decision, every alteration. If true, time travel wouldn't rewrite history. It would spawn countless parallel worlds. The deeper scientists explore, the more blurred the line between fiction and reality becomes. And the more Andrew Carlson's strange claim that he came from the year 2256 feels less like madness and more like an echo of possibilities science hasn't yet unlocked. But just as the questions build, so does the tension. Because if the future is already within our reach, then what does that mean about our past? The mystery of Andrew Carlson already sounded impossible, an ordinary man claiming to be from the year 2256. But the deeper we dive into the science of time travel, the more one terrifying question rises. If time travel is possible, what are the consequences? The first problem is paradox. Imagine you build a machine, step inside, and travel back 50 years. You meet your grandfather before he's married, and then, in some cruel twist of fate, you prevent him from meeting your grandmother. Instantly, a logical nightmare unfolds. If your grandfather never has children, you are never born. But if you're never born, how could you have traveled back in time in the first place? This puzzle, known as the grandfather paradox, isn't just philosophy. It's a black hole of logic that rips apart cause and effect, and it haunts every serious discussion of time travel. But there's another way to think about it. Some physicists argue that paradoxes don't destroy reality. They branch it. According to the multiverse theory, every choice, every action creates a new timeline. Prevent your grandfather from marrying? Fine. That creates a new universe where you never exist, but the original one, where you did, continues untouched. In this view, time travel wouldn't rewrite history. It would spawn infinite realities. Still, speculation is one thing. Proof is another. In 2009, the world's most famous physicist, Stephen Hawking, staged an experiment that would become legendary. He threw a party at Cambridge University, balloons, champagne, hors d'oeuvres, the works. But there was one catch. The invitations were sent after the party ended. If time travelers existed, they could see the invite and travel back to attend. Hawking waited. Midnight passed. The glasses of champagne stayed full. Not a single guest arrived. To Hawking, it was playful proof that time travel into the past was unlikely, or at least not happening yet. But to others, it raised a more chilling possibility. Maybe time travelers do exist. Maybe they are among us. They're just very good at staying hidden. And here's where the story bends back to Andrew Carlson. After his arrest, he reportedly begged the FBI for release, not in the way most suspects do, but by offering something extraordinary in return. He claimed he could provide cures for diseases, secrets of free energy, and even the exact location of Osama bin Laden, who was still at large at the time. If true, this wasn't just insider trading. It was knowledge far beyond 2003. But then, he vanished. Court records went silent. His trail evaporated. Officially, the case was never confirmed by the FBI. Some said the entire story was a hoax, a fabrication from a tabloid. Yet others argued that the details were too precise, too unusual to dismiss, that maybe, just maybe, the government had silenced it. After all, if someone truly did arrive from the year 2256, what secrets would they carry? What future events could they alter? What disasters could they prevent or cause? The climax of Carlson's story isn't just about him. It's about us. It forces us to ask whether time is truly a straight line, or whether it is something far stranger, something looping, branching, twisting, something we're only beginning to understand. And it leaves us with a haunting possibility. If time travelers are real, if they walk among us, maybe they are bound by rules we cannot see. Rules that keep them hidden. Rules that explain why, in that silent courtroom in April 2003, Andrew Carlson disappeared. Not just from the record, but perhaps back into the currents of time itself. The story of Andrew Carlson, whether fact or fiction, is more than just a strange tale from the early 2000s. It's a mirror reflecting our deepest human desire, to bend time, to master fate, to outrun the clock that governs us all. Time travel has always fascinated us, not simply because of its science, but because of its possibilities. Imagine the power to correct history's greatest mistakes, to whisper warnings before disasters strike, to reunite with lost loved ones, or to undo regrets that weigh on our hearts. Time travel is not just about physics. It's about longing. It's about the universal wish for a second chance. And yet, the closer we examine it, the more complicated it becomes. Science has shown us that traveling into the future is possible, through speed, gravity, and even the harsh conditions of space. Astronauts in tiny fractions of a second have already made that leap. But traveling into the past, that opens a door to paradoxes and questions that may never be resolved. Perhaps the laws of the universe protect history, shielding it from interference. Or perhaps, as some physicists suggest, every attempt at altering the past simply creates a new timeline, a parallel world where different outcomes unfold. This is where the mystery of Andrew Carlson still resonates. Whether he was a clever hoax, a government cover-up, or something stranger, his story forces us to confront a bigger question. What if time travel has already happened? What if visitors from the future walk among us, blending seamlessly into our world, never revealing themselves for fear of unraveling the fabric of reality? Stephen Hawking's empty party might have been a joke, but it also carried a warning. If time travelers do exist, maybe they're bound by rules we don't understand. Maybe they cannot interfere openly. Maybe they cannot reveal the future until humanity is ready to bear its weight. And that's where we, today, stand. At the edge of wonder. Scientists continue to search for wormholes, to test relativity, to push rockets to faster speeds. Engineers experiment with cryosleep. And philosophers debate whether free will itself would survive if time travel were possible. Every discovery brings us closer to answers, yet every answer deepens the mystery. So what do we take away from Andrew Carlson's bizarre tale? Perhaps the hidden truth is not about one man in 2003. It's about all of us, here and now. It's about how much we don't yet understand about the universe, and how easily myth and science intertwine. It reminds us that stories, whether born of satire, rumor, or possibility, can spark questions that science itself must chase. In the end, maybe Carlson never existed. Maybe his entire story was a fabrication printed in a tabloid. But the fact that so many believed it, that it spread like wildfire, reveals something powerful. Humanity is ready for the possibility of time travel. And so, the clock ticks on. Scientists peer deeper into space. Writers craft new stories of bending time. And people like you and me wonder, if the chance came to step into a machine, to risk everything and leap into another era, would we take it? Time remains the one force none of us can escape. Yet in stories like Carlson's, we glimpse a tantalizing possibility. Maybe, just maybe, one day we will. So the next time you check your watch or glance at the clock on your wall, remember, what feels like steady rhythm may, in reality, be far more fragile, far more flexible than we imagine. Time is not just a straight line. It is a mystery, still unfolding. And as for Andrew Carlson, his story closes here. But another truth, another hidden story, always waits in the shadows. The question is, when it's revealed, will you be ready to believe it? And as for Andrew Carlson, his story closes here. But another truth, another hidden story, always waits in the shadows. The question is, When it's revealed, will you be ready to believe it? And as for Andrew Carlson, his story closes here. But another truth, another hidden story, always waits in the shadows. The question is, when it's revealed, will you be ready to believe it? If you want to uncover more hidden realities buried beneath the dark veil of our world, make sure to subscribe, because the next story may be even stranger than this one.